guys, this is Elise and welcome back to My Cupcake Addiction. On today's episode, I'm going to be showing you how to do some really fun and really simple bake sale hacks. So you know those times when you're asked to bring something and the last thing you feel like doing is turning on the oven? We're going to use minimal ingredients, minimal time, and we're going to make store-bought stuff look like it's been homemade. Let's get started. Our first cheats baking hack is going to be little Banoffee cream pies. So I'm using pre-bought supermarket tart cases, just little ones. I've also got a banana, a can of caramel, and over here I've got a little bit of cream, which I'm going to whip today. I've also got a couple of Ziploc bags and a pair of scissors, a sharp knife, an electric mixer with some beaters, and a couple of bowls. I find the canned caramel a bit lumpy when it first comes out, so I like to give it a beat for about 30 seconds to a minute so it's really nice and smooth. And then you want to whip that cream into nice, firm peaks. Pop both your caramel and your cream into a Ziploc bag each, and then you want to slice your banana. Slice this really nice and thin, don't go overboard on the thickness, and then just lay a nice little thin sliver of banana in the bottom of each of your tart shells. Cut a smallish sized corner off your Ziploc bag and use that to neatly place the caramel. It needs to cover the banana completely, but you don't want to overfill those tart shells. Give it a couple of good knocks on the bench to level them off, and then you want to cut quite a fat corner off your cream bag, and this is just making it a makeshift piping bag. So I'm just doing a really rough kind of a swirl to add that cream on top. I recommend adding the cream not long before you want to serve these. So if you're taking them to the bake sale just before you go, it's the perfect time. Of course, you can eliminate the cream completely, and then these guys don't even need to be refrigerated. Our second bake sale hack is going to be homemade chocolate chip s'mores sandwiches. The trick to these is getting the roughest, most homemade looking chocolate chip cookies you can. These are just store-bought ones that I'm using today, but I like that they're a little bit oddly sized and oddly shaped. I've got some plain white marshmallows, and I've also got some chocolate melts. I've also got a tray lined with a little bit of baking paper. Preheat your oven to its lowest possible temperature, and then you want to place the cookies flat side up facing you onto your baking paper lined tray. Place down 3 of your little chocolate melts, and these should be compound chocolate, so they shouldn't contain the ingredient cocoa butter. Once you've got all of your chocolate melts on, place 1 marshmallow in between each of the little melts right in the middle. 1 more chocolate melt makes like a little hat, I guess, on top of your marshmallow, and then pop those off into the oven. These don't take long in the oven, so watch them, and you'll see the marshmallows ever so slightly start to swell. As soon as you see that, they're ready to go. Grab a second cookie and flat side down, squish it on top of that marshmallow, and the chocolate melt on top of the marshmallow should help stick everything together. I stuck these straight in the freezer so that marshmallow doesn't continue to ooze down too far, and for ease of serving, you can pop these into little cupcake liners to take to the bake sale. Number 3, the caramel Twix pie is quite possibly my favorite of these 6 baking hacks. This guy is 4 ingredients, 10 minutes, and utterly delicious. I've got a pre-made large pie shell or tart shell. I've also got some melted compound milk chocolate and a can of caramel. I've got a bunch of Twix bars, and I ended up using about 3 of these in total. A Ziploc bag and some scissors, a sharp knife, and an electric mixer in a bowl. Empty your canned caramel into a bowl and give it a nice beat with the electric mixer so that it's beautiful and runny and smooth. Chop up your Twix bars and make sure they're all kind of chunky in different sizes and different lengths for a bit of variation, and then you want to pour your caramel into your pre-bought tart shell. Pour it in, but make sure you've got a little bit of space at the top and you're not overfilling it, because these Twix pieces that we're going to stick in there all haphazardly are actually going to raise that level of caramel a little bit. So I put all of my Twix pieces so that you can see the shortbread and the caramel facing up, and then you want to put your melted milk chocolate into a Ziploc bag, cut off a nice little tip, and you're just going to really kind of messily drizzle this over the top. Make sure that you come all the way around that outside edge, because this not only looks amazing and tastes amazing, it also helps to stick all of the components of your pie together. So when people eat it and have a slice, all of those bits of Twix don't just kind of fall apart. That's your amazing 4 ingredient, 10-minute Twix pie. These guys are little DIY Lamington mini cakes. So if you don't know what Lamingtons are, they're a very Australian thing, and they're traditionally a vanilla sponge coated in chocolate and dipped in coconut. Today I'm using pre-bought sponge squares, so we've already saved a ton of time. You're going to need some sifted powdered sugar, some cocoa unsweetened, some plain water, and I've got some assorted sprinkles. So I'm using some crushed up chocolate bars. These are flakes. I've also got some sprinkles and of course the traditional coconut. I've got a knife and a fork, and I've got a baking tray lined with some baking paper because we are going to make a mess on this one. To make your chocolate coating, just put your cocoa and your icing sugar together, and I'll leave quantities that you need for these in the description box below. Give them a good stir around and then add your water. Add this a little bit at a time, and it really is to eye, but what you're trying to make is a really thin water-based runny icing. So you can see as I stir it there, I just add in a little bit more water, give it a little stir until all of my powdered sugar and cocoa is dissolved and I've got a really nice runny, almost like a chocolatey sauce. Cut your sponge into nice even squares, shapes, stars, whatever you like, but squares are easiest here. And then pop that into the icing. So I'm just going to use the fork to kind of flip it. And when you do this, you sort of want to have one fork that you're using in the icing and another one that you're using for the sprinkling so that you're not putting sprinkles all back into your chocolate icing. Shake off any excess and then just hover it over one particular patch of your baking paper and sprinkle with your desired sprinkles. So you can go crazy here. You can use nuts, you can use your favorite candy bar, you can use crushed up M&Ms, whatever you like. I used a knife just to gently slide them off the fork, and you want to let them set for about an hour or so on that baking paper because that chocolate icing is actually going to set quite firm. So once they're ready, you can just pick them up and you can stack them. You can do whatever you like with them. Some little cupcake cases are a great way to present these if you want to serve them as individual portions, and remember not to cut them too perfectly because we do want these to look homemade. We're making some basic chocolate tarts, but they're going to be chocolate tiny teddy tartlets to add a little bit of fun and colour. You're going to need some chocolate, some whipping cream, sprinkles, a spoon and some tiny teddies, and I'm also using little pre-bought tart shells or pastry cases. These guys are super easy. Just pour your cream over top of your chocolate and then you want to melt it in the microwave. So 30 seconds stir, 30 seconds stir, and this really shouldn't take more than about a minute. Give it a really good stir in between so that you end up with a nice runny chocolate ganache essentially. This is going to be the filling for your tarts. So because this is really runny, a Ziploc bag's not the best way to get it in the tart shell. I just used a spoon, but you will end up with a little bit of overhang over the side unless you're an absolute perfectionist. Fill these up, but don't fill them all the way to the top because you need a little bit of room for that chocolate to rise when you slip in your little tiny teddy, and then cover with sprinkles. You can make these kid-friendly like I have, or of course you can make them a little bit more adult by using something like crushed nuts or grated chocolate instead. The last of our baking hacks today will be the sweet fruit kebabs. Look, I'm not going to say these are healthy, but at least they incorporate some fruit. I've got some fresh strawberries and I've also got some dark chocolate. I'm using some pink and white marshmallows and some plastic lollipop sticks, or you could use bamboo skewers. I've got a pair of scissors and a Ziploc bag and just a little bit of baking paper. Melt your chocolate in the microwave just on 30-second intervals, stirring in between, and then spoon it into a Ziploc bag. Start your little kebab by threading on first a marshmallow. You want a marshmallow at either end here because they'll be slightly sticky and they'll hold the fruit in place. Then on goes a strawberry, marshmallow, strawberry. You kind of get the idea. Don't use a paper or a cardboard lollipop stick here because it'll absorb the moisture and it'll go a little bit kind of bendy or flexible. Cut a very nice small tip off the corner of your Ziploc bag full of chocolate, and starting about an inch on either side of your row of kebabs, quickly drizzle on some lines. The faster you do this while applying an even pressure, the neater your lines are going to be. And the trick when you're striping something like this is really to start well on either side of your little kebabs. Before that chocolate starts to set, pick them up, pop them down onto your serving tray, and there you've got a, dubiously healthy bake sale hack. None of these guys took more than about 10 or 15 minutes to put together. Everyone's going to think they're homemade, and your job for the bake sale is now done. Oh, sorry, I was just watching some TV while I didn't have to turn on my oven because those 6 amazing bake sale hacks are so simple. I hope you guys found something that you're going to whip up at home for the next bake sale that's going to save you a ton of time that you could be doing other fun things. Thanks very much for tuning in to My Cupcake Addiction.